You're listening to the Monday Night Community Show with Daniel on BRFM.
This is the Daniel Monday Night Community Show on demand through YouTube. Thank you very much for choosing to listen to us through this method. If you'd like to keep up to date with when I add new interviews, then subscribe to this channel. We'll be talking to Chris and Janys all about the Rose St Cottage Museum. Firstly, thank you very much for joining us in the studio this evening.
Thanks, Daniel. Yeah.
I was hoping you could start off by telling us a little bit about the history behind the building.
Right, well, we have only just taken the building over, so we haven't found out as much of the history as we hope to in the future. But I have here in front of me a list taken from the census forms, and from what we can gather, the first people that lived there, 1841, it was originally a dock worker's cottage, and James Brenchley lived there, and he was a shipwright born in Sheerness. For 30 years, the Brenchley family lived there. Round about 1871, you can't quite tell because the censuses are only every 10 years. Then the Kicks family lived there 50 or 60 years, right up till about 1925, when the fish and chip people took it over. And everybody that you talk to, everybody that knows anything about the building, remembers it as the best fish and chips in Sheerness. So I'm not quite sure when they finished. We've got a lovely photograph of it all decorated up for the coronation of George V in around 35 or 37. It's a bit, depends which picture you look at. And then it, at some point, fell into really bad disrepair. It was going to be knocked down, and I've got another photograph of it, all the windows boarded up and looking in a very, very sorry state. Then in 1989 it got taken over as the museum, more or less as it is now, and then I'm afraid some of the people were getting older, and so Swale Borough Council decided to give the place a new lease of life, and have decided that we would be the best people to bring it back to life again.
How did your group come to run it?
It's been quite a long process, Daniel. What happened was the council approached various groups that might be interested, and they advertised in local papers across Swale, inviting people to submit what they call a declaration of interest, which we discussed among ourselves and thought, well, that would be something quite good for Promenade. It'd be something else that we could take forward, and it sort of ticks a lot of the boxes, the things that Promenade is interested in sort of promoting the arts and culture on the island. And we thought we could use some of the space as a gallery, some of the space for history, and other bits for perhaps having a literary group in there. So trying to get all the things that Promenade stands for literally under one roof. So we submitted our interest to the council, who then asked us to submit a business case, and we had to submit loads of bits of paper to go with the council for that. At Christmas they come back to us and said it'd gone to the cabinet meeting, and we were the preferred group, although by that stage I think we were the only group still standing because it's such a long process. And but one of the stipulations was that we had to become a charity. At the moment we're a not-for-profit community group, but we need to be a charity, so we've got to become a charity as part of that for the council. The council in the interim have agreed to sign over a temporary lease for the Big Fish, who are already a registered charity, and whilst we go through the process of getting the charitable status, which again is another lot of hoops to go through. But the council didn't seem too bothered about that to start with, because they were talking about other things they've done, like the Fleur de Lis Centre, the Alexander Centre, the the Mason Dew in Milton, and all of those they all take at least a year. So although we're champing at the bit to try and get started, the council are quite laid back about it, but there is a lot of hoops still to go through before it's completely ours. But we are in residence, if you like, and so we're able to at least start doing some of the work that we'd like to do to turn it into the kind of museum that we'd like it to be.
What have you done, Chris, since you took over?
Well, we've only actually had the keys now for about 3 weeks, but we've worked very hard on attracting volunteers, because one of the main things that we're going to want to do is a lot of work on the place in the way of cleaning, tidying, sorting, cataloguing, and then when that's all done, then displaying all the lovely things that are in there in a slightly different way, just partly so that we ring the changes, and we want to bring history to life. So we want to make it a livelier place. And we've got a nice lot of volunteers in the promenade group. We've got a nice lot of volunteers in Big Fish. So we've been meeting each other, the two various groups. We mostly know each other anyway, but there are a few people that don't. And we had a day the other day asking for volunteers to come in and sign up. So about 20 people popped in, several of which are going to be very useful to us in the way of working on the place. And then when we do finally get to open, people who would like to welcome the public and greet them and show them around the museum. So there's lots to do, and if there are other volunteers out there, we would very much like to hear from them.
And I was wondering next, Janys, why did you actually decide to change the name?
We wanted to change the name to go with the new identity. We had quite a lot of discussions initially to decide on a name, because we didn't want to give it sort of a dusty name, and we wanted to give it a sort of new vibrant name. At the same time, we wanted for it to tell something about what it was. In some of the documents we have from the council, they did refer to it as the dock workers' cottage, and we thought, we don't like the dockyard workers bit, but we did like the cottage bit. And the street name being Rose Street is such a pretty name, Rose Street Cottage, and we thought, well, that sums up what it is. It's a little tiny cottage, and we're keeping its character of being a place where somebody lived, and keeping the rooms with the sort of that are dressed as rooms from Victorian times as they are. And so we wanted to sort of get that cottagey feel into the name, and so we plumped for the Rose Street Cottage Museum, because we think that says exactly what it does on the tin. As well as being pretty as a name, it lends itself to doing other things. Well, on the logo, for instance, we can start using the rose, which reflects on the name. We also want to plant roses around the cottage as well, so as people will be able to recognise it instantly as being the Rose Street Cottage Museum from a distance. And there's other things, like at Rose Street School, they used to have an annual Queen of the Rose, and so we want to sort of tap into that as well. So it's all sort of those sort of, I won't say Victorian idyll of what things used to be like, but that's the kind of thing we want to. We want to show that dockyard workers, it wasn't just all about its grim working in the dockyard, that they had a whole other life going on in the community, where, you know, the children went to school, people lived and did things. They did their gardens. Their gardens were quite important to people because they gave them extra produce, helped them survive. And so we want to put all of this across, that what a cottage was to a worker in Victorian times, a lot more than just being, you know, a dusty old museum. We want it to be a living history place. And so we tried to sum all of that up in the name of Rose St Cottage Museum.
I was wondering next, what are your plans for the future, Chris?
Well, the main plan is to bring the place to life. That's partly bringing history to life, which is one of our big aims, and it is also combining arts and history. We made a very small start the other day. We painted some tiles, which we are hoping we'll be able to put up in the loo. And we're hoping to paint some historical murals in the loo of aspects of Sheerness and the seaside, sort of vintage seaside activities that went on in Sheerness. So it's that bringing together of art and history and making lots of interactive events happening, so that it won't just be a question of people coming in, having a little look round and saying, oh, very nice, and off they go, because people only really do that once. But we want people to come back so that we'll have various activities, so it's worth their while coming back to, and we'll have some workshops that people can come along to. They might be workshops of some of the older kind of crafts, in the usual sort of knitting and crochet and patchwork and things that ladies used to do, and gentlemen, of course, in history. And so we've actually got loads and loads of ideas. It's really a question of getting on with it. We are going to be getting ready for the launch. I'm afraid we don't yet know when the launch will be. It all depends how quickly we can get on with the redecoration and the revamping of the place. But there will definitely be opportunity for arts activities, literary, artistic, all kinds of arts which bring the history of the place to life.
And I was wondering if you could let our listeners know how they can get involved.
Oh, well, at the moment we're going to be setting up a new Facebook page and Twitter accounts for the Cottage Museum. We've still got the Promenade website, which is sheppeypromenade.org, and we are going to be setting up a separate Rose St Cottage website as well. The old Sheerness Heritage Centre website is unfortunately, the domain has died on that, so we've lost that, but we're hoping to recreate what was on that website as much as we can. Chris has got hundreds of photos which we're going to be putting on there, and sort of any other history bits that we can, and linking up with other sites like the Sheppey History website. In the meantime, people can contact us through the Promenade website, which links through to Jeremy and Mai's email address. Obviously, the Big Fish has got their own website and their own Facebook page, and you can link through to Chris's email on those websites as well. And Chris's phone number's also on her website. Mm-hmm. So there's lots of ways that people can contact us. And, you know, even if you just pop a note through the door of the cottage with a phone number on it, then, you know, next time we pop in, we will phone you back.
And I know we're now going to go on to talk all about this year's Promenade here in Sheppey.
Well, we're very excited about Promenade this year. It's going to be a little bit different from in the past. One of the main differences is going to be that it's going to be earlier. It's going to be just at the very beginning of the school summer holidays. It's going to begin 24th of July, ending the 2nd of August. So it's the end of July, beginning of August, so that we are hoping to get the school children and school students very much more involved than they have been. It's quite tricky to get them involved when you have it in September. The other difference is, whereas most of our previous promenades have been based on history, and particularly last year was the First World War, but this year it's going to be a little bit more creative, more imaginative, and the title is going to be Monsters, Myths and Mermaids. Now, there are people who do know stories of sea monsters around the shores of the Isle of Sheppey, and there are lots of legends, and so this is what we're going to be basing this year's festival on. It gives us plenty of scope for building things, and we're going to be joining with the town team for they're having a seaside festival round about that 1st of August time in Sheerness, and so that's going to give us the opportunity to have a fantastic parade, build structures on the beach and in the back of the Rose St Cottage Museum. And I'm looking at Janys now to tell us some of the other delights which have been booked for the event.
Thank you, Chris. Well, last year, for the first time, we used some of the funding that we had to put on a free concert with the UK Paper Silver Band, and they were very pleased and want to come back again. So we're going to stage another one. We're going to have it earlier in the evening, around tea time, so people can bring a picnic, and that, again, we hope will be free. And we'll be inviting people to come along that, bring their picnics with them, bring the garden chairs, bring a blanket to sit on, and we'll either have that on the seafront or we're going to have that at Barton's Point, just see what would work best for that. At the Sheppey Little Theatre, we've booked a play called The Magnificent Men in Their Flying Machine, which is a two-man play about the crossing of the Atlantic by Orville Wright and the other one, whose name I can't remember.
Something Wright as well, wasn't it?
And,
Wright brothers.
And that's been on the Edinburgh Fringe as well, so that's going to be really good, a little bit different to what we normally have, because we normally book fairly serious plays. As Chris says, we've been doing a lot of history, so we try and link in with those. And there's a number of activities already sort of coming on. People like the Gatehouse want to be involved. We hope to do stuff in the cottage if we're able to. And as usual, we'll be working with Blue Town, a Heritage Centre, and various other groups around the island to sort of bring a variety of things, trying to do more sort of the seasidey things, perhaps in Laysdown and Walden Bay this year as well. We've got a number of artists live up that end of the island, so want to do a few more things up there as well. But as Chris says, we're very excited. One of the things about this particular theme is it gives us so much scope to do all kinds of things that connect with our wonderful seaside past.
And I was just hoping before you both go, if you could just go over some of the useful contact details and, of course, anything else you'd like to cover.
Thanks. Right, the Sheppey Promenade website is www.sheppeypromenade.org, and you can contact me on my email account, which is thornton@sminky, that's spelled SMINKY F for Freddy, S for sugar, net.co.uk. That's thornton@sminky.fsnet.co.uk, and of course there's always Facebook.
And my contact details, my mobile phone number is 0777 57 12306. But there's also the Big Fish Facebook, which is a very handy way of doing it, or Chris Reed Messenger on Facebook. And as Janys said before, just pop a little note through the door if there's nobody actually in the museum. There's often somebody there, but not at actual regular times. Saturday morning, there's often somebody there. So there's lots of ways to get in touch with us, and we'll look forward to seeing you either in the museum in the future, and certainly at the exciting events that are going to be put on at Sheppey Promenade this year. Thank you.
Well, no, thank you very much, both of you, for coming along and telling us all about that this evening.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you, Daniel.
That's Chris and Janys here at 95.6 BRFM on the Monday Night Community Show this evening.